Hello, my name is Elijah Vega, and this is my documentary about the extinction. This world is billions of years old and is the result of billions of years of development. But there is an inevitability that happens that impacts the natural ecosystem of this world, and that's extinction. Extinction is inevitable and it is a natural process, and it happens to many different living species on this planet. There have been several mass extinction events that have happened throughout Earth's history, one of which eliminated almost all life on Earth. Somewhere in between the 95 to 98% of all life on Earth was wiped out. But today, this process is being accelerated. This process is being accelerated because of us. Due to our actions, there is another mass extinction event that is happening right before our eyes. Species of plants and animals are going extinct at a higher rate that is comparable to extinction events in the past. If something were to be done about it now, it still wouldn't go out and it still wouldn't fix the problem that these species are gone. But due to leaps and bounds into new technology and technological advancement, species might be able to be brought back from extinction, and it can be brought back and it can go back they can go back to their proper place in the ecosystem. Before we can go into a real world example into this concept, we need to discuss how this is even possible. It is possible to do this by the most common method, I think, and this is by genetic cloning. This is done by getting the genetic material of an animal that you want to clone. You go out and do this by extracting the nuclear material from the nucleus of the cell from the animal that you want to clone. And you go out, you take this material and you inject this material into a live specimen, and with that process, you make a clone. And there are also other methods of cloning, but this is the one that's most likely going to be used. This is a new technology that is in its infancy, but it has had some successes. The technology used could be along the lines of genetic cloning. There have been some successes, and these include survival of an already extinct species. And this species is called the Pyrenean ibex. This is a species of goat that lived in a region in Spain that went extinct in the early 2000s. But in around the mid to late 2000s, this species was brought back from extinction. And this was possible due to the genetic cloning process that I talked about before. But unfortunately, the success was not long lived because the specimen died shortly after it was born. With some of these successes is not an answer of whether this technology is to be used, but when and if it should be used. Is it reasonable to bring back species that have become extinct? And what is the limit that should be in place if there should be one? Well, there have been examples of reintroduction of a new species into an ecosystem, and we must look at none other than Yellowstone National Park. The wolf in Yellowstone National Park for the time were absent from the ecosystem of Yellowstone National Park. Because of this, the elk population was out of control. They were growing at a really rapid pace, and it was overall detrimental to the ecosystem. And the solution was to bring back the wolf population, and try to take care of the elk problem. And the result is that it mostly worked. The elk population was decreased, and overall, the ecosystem was better off. The ecosystem was overall better off with this decision. Species of plants did better, and other animals that relied on some of these plants did better as well. This can be put in the greater context of bringing back extinct species. They can be brought back to the original ecosystem and it can work. If the species is brought back to the ecosystem that it was in originally, it could succeed, and it has happened in the past. This is a great responsibility for us to hold, and this is a responsibility that should not be abused. This cannot be used to bring back long extinct species that will be harmful to not only itself, but also to the ecosystem that it would be placed in. There has to be a limit. An example is I do not think that the woolly mammoth would fare that well in today's climate, and it would be detrimental to the ecosystem that it would be placed in. The general ecosystem has been without this specific species for so long that it would be a detriment to try to bring it back. If this were to be done, it has to be done correctly. We can't just reproduce species with no rhyme or reason. It has to be done correctly. These species that are brought back must be brought back to a reasonable extent. We cannot let species that are in environments that are no longer habitable be brought back to a non existing ecosystem. There are species that are now extinct because of habitat destruction. Their habitat was destroyed and they cannot be placed in their original environment. They should not be brought back. We must be reasonable and we have to be fair to not only us, but also the species that are to be brought back. When taking everything into account, there has to be responsibility for our actions. And our actions as a species is having a detrimental impact on our planet. And because of our actions, there's a great many species that are going extinct, and it's our responsibility to bring them back. And they can be brought back if we make the effort to bring them back. And it is worth it to try to bring them back so that we can have a better tomorrow.